All right, what's up, Nuggets fans? Ryan Blackburn here with Swipa on the Mile High Sports YouTube channel. Make sure to give us a like and subscribe down below. We've got some fun content here for you. We wanted to rank the top 7 coaches in the NBA, kind of honoring Michael Malone and the contract extension that he just received with the Denver Nuggets. Swipa, how you doing today? And how'd you feel about that Michael Malone extension?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I've been saying Michael Malone is the truth for a while now. I remember last year, at some point, I put a tweet out, maybe 6 months before the finals. I said, I think that I want to see Michael Malone, Jokic, and Murray, and I think Porter win a championship together one day, just because they've all been together for so long. And so to see it happen, the way it happened, he proved that he's one of the most dominant coaches, in-game adjustment coaches in the NBA, and really earned some respect after the championship, especially with the way he handles himself. So really, obviously, very happy for him.
It's been good to see, and he's now a part of the Nuggets culture in so many different ways. And like you're talking about, this was a good moment for the Nuggets franchise where you can kind of pillar yourself to a true awesome coach, somebody who people like, somebody who people respect, and somebody who has gotten the job done. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about some other coaches who got the job done. I asked you to rank the top 7 coaches in the NBA, which is a tough list because you and I were talking about before. There's a lot of talented coaches in the NBA, a lot of impactful coaches in the NBA. Who are some maybe of your tough cuts that you thought were close on your list?
Yeah, so I had 3 that I was considering. I think Quinn Snyder's a really freaking good coach. I actually love the way he handles himself. I think his offenses are always good, managing talent. Managed to bring a Utah Jazz team with one good defender on the roster and take them to the first seed in the West. I think Quinn is a really good coach. Ty Lue, again, had some down years, like not great this year so far. Don't love his rotations. Playoff rotations last year frustrated me. But overall, man, he helped the Cavs win a championship, and he's the main reason they did it. And he's able to put talent together. I think he's able to sustain it really well. And also, I had Rick Carlisle. That actually did end up making my top 7. I think he's been a good coach since he was with the Mavericks. And what he's doing with the Pacers right now really is incredible. And they have the number 1 offense in the NBA basically as well. So those were the 3 misses that I had.
Yeah, for me, I'll name 4. Rick Carlisle was one of them. Ty Lue was another. Steve Kerr was another one for me. And he's one that I think a lot of people would expect in that top 7, in that elite group. But there are reasons, I think, to question what's been going on in Golden State over the course of these last couple of years, how much of it is tethered to Steph Curry as opposed to the development of players and getting people up to speed within that system, which clearly does work, but they haven't been able to really get enough players to play that system well enough. And then the other one is Greg Popovich, who a lot of people would have in that top 7 as well for obvious reasons. But it's like basically since the 2018 season, the San Antonio Spurs have kind of underperformed. They have not been at the level that you would hope that they could be with a Greg Popovich type coach. And I know that he has been a fantastic coach for a long, long time, but there are decisions that I question pretty consistently. And I know that they're in kind of a different place with development right now in their organization, but there was a long time there where they were kind of just stuck in the mud around DeMar DeRozan, LaMarcus Aldridge, guys like that. And it just hasn't really gotten better. I think it's gotten worse in my mind.
Well, this is going to be interesting because I think you're seeing DeMar DeRozan completely destroy Billy Donovan's coaching career right now. So I think what he got accomplished in getting to the playoffs and then even being a 7th seed almost took down the 2nd seed in that playoff. And then after that, DeMar DeRozan, LaMarcus Aldridge were both washed kind of after that. Then DeMar had a resurgence for 1 year with Chicago, made an All-NBA team. So we'll get to him in a minute, but that's interesting.
All right, so let's get into our top 7s then. Let's see who you had at your 7th ranked coach.
Okay, number 7, I got Mike Brown. Mike Brown just won unanimous Coach of the Year. Mike Brown, people have if you weren't tied into basketball in the 2000s, Mike Brown was an assistant coach. Mike Brown took over the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think they won 66 games, got Coach of the Year, and then after that, LeBron left. Mike Brown ends up leaving Cleveland. Mike Brown gets hired to the Lakers. In a very short stint, Mike Brown gets blamed for everything wrong with the LA Lakers when they have, since Kobe won a championship his last year, have made it to the finals one time. Once. Since that point, Mike Brown got blamed for organizational dysfunction because Mitch Kupchak was still there at the time. Jeannie Buss had to fire her brother in order to get the franchise back on track, and Mike Brown got blamed for that. Mike Brown then goes to the Golden State Warriors, is a part of the dynasty run with the coaching staff with Steve Kerr, and because of Mike Brown, their offense and Steve Kerr, their offense was elite. He then goes from there, goes to Sacramento year one, greatest offense in NBA history, and then wins unanimous coach of the year. Mike Brown, for me, has been scapegoated multiple times by two different organizations for stuff that had nothing to do with him. And so I think Mike Brown has earned and proved that he is one of the 7 best schematic coaches, motivators, and player coaches in the NBA.
I think he's great. He was number 6 on my list. He is a very awesome coach, deserves credit. When you do win coach of the year, you have to at least be considered on a list like this. There are some guys that I think probably won coach of the year where they didn't really deserve it. Mike Brown deserved it. Mike Brown absolutely is an awesome coach and deserves to be credited for that for sure. Number 7 on my list was Quinn Snyder, somebody who you mentioned, and I think that he is an awesome coach. I think he should be renamed Win Snyder because he wins wherever he goes. They like in Utah for a long time outperformed expectations with a roster that wasn't awesome all the time, and he got a great offense around Rudy Gobert, one of the best defensive players we've ever seen. So I've been very, very impressed with Quinn Snyder, especially now that he is in Atlanta. They've really turned around their program, and it looks like a completely different team in a lot of different ways. So Quinn Snyder deserves some love too.
Yeah, I got Quinn Snyder, like I said, outside the top 7, but I think he's a really good coach. Number 6 for me is Nick Nurse. I think Nick Nurse is incredible. I think that, again, another organizational thing, right? So Nick Nurse gets Kawhi Leonard. Okay. Pascal, Fred VanVleet, OG gets hurt in the playoff, but OG is there. Marc Gasol's there. They got Danny Green is there. Okay, cool. Serge Ibaka is there. Defense, one of the best defenses ever through a playoff run. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Nick Nurse then doesn't have Kawhi Leonard, gets stuck with the rest of the roster with the Raptors, and then they're still competing for playoff spots every single year. And then on top of that, Masai Ujiri, who I think for years, up until the last 2 years, was beloved. People love Masai, but then now Masai didn't resign Fred VanVleet. He got Jakob Poeltl for a first-round pick on a team that was contending for a play-in spot. He had Pascal, OG, Scotty Barnes. They got Dennis Schroeder at point guard. The situation with them was nefarious at best, and Nick Nurse still made a lot of it. And then now you see Nick Nurse with Joel Embiid, best playmaking season of his career. Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey's an all-NBA player. He looks like he's going to be an all-NBA player this year. Then you have DeAnthony Melton. You got freaking Nicholas Batum, looks like a player. You got Rocco, looks like a player. You got Jaden Springer, who many people thought was a bust, looks like a solid rotational piece now. Oh, by the way, prior to his accident, Kelly Oubre signed for a veteran minimum, 21 points a game the first 7 games of the year on really good efficiency. Nick Nurse, out of nowhere, has this Philly team with no James Harden contending for the number 1 spot in the Eastern Conference over the Milwaukee Bucks, by the way, and contending with Joe Mazzulla in the Boston Celtics. I think Nick Nurse deserves that spot on this list for sure.
Absolutely. I have him at 5. I think he like our lists are very similar so far. I'm a little bit lower, I assume, on Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr than you. I think that these guys are all awesome, and Nick Nurse deserves a lot of credit for the way that he's been creative. And I think his creativity showed itself in Toronto in a lot of different ways, but now it's showing itself in a different way with a team like Philly, where you have more of a traditional scoring guard, you have more of a traditional big man center, and then you've got some awesome wings in between. He had just a whole bunch of awesome wings and forwards in Toronto and found ways to be creative with that. So he's a guy who I think is creative and versatile and willing to do interesting things and can get guys playing the right way. I really like that number. Who's number 5 on your list then?
Man, this is tough. I got Steve Kerr here. I know there's some interesting conversation about Steve Kerr. This is the thing. I know Steve Kerr in his later years, post 14, 15. And here's the problem. Just like Steph Curry, that 2016 to 2019 run is hard to gauge how good he was. And I think Steph Curry was incredible, but this is why Steph Curry gets dinged. You have freaking Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Draymond, and Curry. There's just no way to mess it up. You know what I mean? But there's not really, but even if you look at Kevin Durant's numbers over that run, I can know that the criticisms are that they weren't a tremendous plus with Kevin Durant on the court without Steph. So maybe that's some offensive stuff they could have done differently. But I think Steve Kerr, from the moment he took over that team in 2014, they became a dynasty in part because of what he was able to implement. He built an offense around Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, built a defense around Draymond Green, recognized their strength, and then from there they took off. Now, maybe it's the blueprint that's giving him a lot of credence in this list for me. Maybe it's not some of the personnel decisions or development that he hasn't done well that is carrying him out of your list, for instance. But I think the blueprint he laid at Golden State doesn't win the championship if Steve Kerr doesn't come in that system and rebuild it the way he did. Build around Steph, build around Jay Ray, build around Klay, finding use for Harrison Barnes, finding use for even players that were all coming off of injuries like Sean Livingston and all of them, and Festus Uzili. These players weren't well-known marketed. Leandro Barbosa. Some of these players were better. Richard Jefferson. It's not like they had a bunch of talent outside of the core 3 or core 4. And I think the way he was able to make it work, why have Steve Kerr at 5?
It's completely fair. And I know that with me putting Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr kind of outside of this top 7, more of it is about giving credit to some of these more up and coming coaches where they have, I think, have established kind of a new hierarchy of things within the coaching sphere. And for a long time, Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr were, and they still are in a lot of ways, the cream of the crop and who people aspire to be in this coaching system and in the NBA world. So no criticisms from me in having that order. So my 5, 6, and 7 are Nick Nurse, Mike Brown, and Quinn Snyder. Number 4 for me is Ime Udoka.
Yeah, he's freaking good, bro.
Really, really good. And he's getting the Houston Rockets, a team that's been directionless and has not had any spine, has not had any sort of direction at all, to play in the right direction, to play in the same direction and commit to both sides of the floor and play through Alperen Şengün and things like that. He is understanding the talent that he has and putting together a winning program around that talent. He has adapted his own personality while also putting some of the finishing touches and leaving his imprint on the team in terms of trying hard, doing the right things, and communicating well. Been really, really impressed.
And plays into their strengths. Şengün's the core of the offense. Dylan Brooks with Fred VanVleet and, Jabari and all them. Hey, we're going to lock in and play defense. We're going to limit quarter threes, and we're going to pack the paint when we need to, but we're going to run you around. And on top of that, with the bench, they just figured out how to play all these. And then on top of that, they're developing Amen Thompson. They're going to develop Cam Whitmore. They're still Tari Eason, Jay Sean Tate. They have a lot of pieces and a lot of young pieces. Jalen Green, obviously not shooting super well right now. But I think all of it put together, man, I think they really have taken a significant step. I think Ime is responsible for a lot of that. So I have him as 4 as well.
Okay, completely fair. We are now into the top 3 then. Who is your 3rd ranked coach?
Michael Malone.
Good choice. Pretty good.
Yeah, Michael Malone has really shown me a lot. And it's so funny that we had all these criticisms. Well, not we, but people had all these criticisms of Malone for playing Facu or, not playing Bones enough, Christian Brown coming along, or Porter early, not playing him a lot. But, man, honestly, Malone made the intention of Torrey Craig in the starting lineup in 2018-19. They needed that. The Gary Harris, once he got back in the lineup, the defense was trash. Gary Harris comes back game 5 and game 6. All of a sudden, the defense is good again versus Utah. He outcoached Doc Rivers. He outcoached Quinn Snyder. He then outcoaches in the last playoff run. He goes through Chris Finch, Coach of the Year candidate 2 years ago. He goes through Monty Williams, Coach of the Year winner. And then he ends up going through, obviously, Darvin Ham. And then he, say what you want, Jokic set adjustments, all that. He outcoaching Eric Spoelstra. And again, if you look at the game plan and what they were able to do, like even when they went zone, eventually their zone after game 3, really after game 4, but really after game 3, became useless because instead of leaving Jokic at the very top, they're like, all right, bet, well, just go ahead and put Jokic in the corner. And now every time you try to make this adjustment, boom, 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 Christian Brown mover. Or one of the things he did that I love this year, just an example, they're running pick and roll with the LA Clippers, and he's on Ivica Zubac. We're having trouble stopping it. Okay, put him on Terrence Mann. Now it's just changing the way you're running your pick and roll. It's the same thing with the Steve Kerr, Michael Malone matchup this year when they had Steph Curry and Looney are running pick and roll. Okay, well, go and put him over here on the side on CP3. And then he just always has these little adjustments he makes. And I think they're always so prepared going in the game. And he didn't used to be good at in-game adjustment. He's gotten to the point where he's elite. And he coached a team with one all-star and got Michael Porter Jr. to buy in on defense and got Aaron Gordon to completely mold his game around this system. And they went 16-4 in a championship run, and now they're 9-2 with the chance to do it again. So I think he deserves all the credit.
I love it. And I think a good way to kind of underscore that point, the Nuggets in the NBA Finals allowed 95, 94, 93, and 89 points in their 4 wins. Right. They were the best version of themselves defensively, as Michael Malone has consistently preached the value of defense, the willingness to buy in, and doing the hard things and making sure that they're all as crisp and as clear as possible. His message was firmly received, and I think that I have him at 2. I do not have him at 3. I have him at 2 as the second best coach in the entire NBA. I think it's completely fair, and he deserves all of the praise in the world. The person that I have at 3, who you are going to probably question, and I think that there are very interesting points to be made here.
It's going to be either Dagnall. It's Dagnall?
Yep. It's Dagnall. It is Mark Dagnall. That dude is a magician. He is so good. And the OKC Thunder, you could see it in the moments where they were continuing to develop and they were continuing to establish good habits. They are a top 5 defense right now. They're a top 5 defense, despite the fact that they are playing 4 guards / wings and an undersized center in Chet Holmgren. They are amazing. And the reason why they are amazing is because they are so well coached. They have talent. There's no question about that. These guys are all draft picks. They're all high draft picks in a lot of ways. But getting those guys to play in the right direction and moving the same way, consistently building upon year after year after year, getting better and better and better. Dagnall is awesome. And he's one of those guys as a young coach who doesn't get enough credit, but the real hoopers know, real kind of NBA hipsters know, that dude is unbelievable. And he's number 3 on my list.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough, bro. Just hadn't proven anything. Good, really good. I'm saying he's a very good coach. I think he's like coach of the year candidate level, but I think relative to guys on this list, just hadn't had a chance maybe yet to prove something. But yeah, I can definitely understand the logic behind it for sure. Number 2 on my list is Pop. Some of the stuff I mentioned earlier, I think Coach Popovich has I think getting criticism, not from you, just period. Like DeMar DeRozan is not a player to build a franchise around, and neither is LaMarcus Aldridge. And they turned Derek White into this very lowly touted prospect, one of the best defensive guards in the NBA. Done with Trey Jones, he's positive in it. Trying Jeremy Sohan at the point guard position. Devin Vassell's development. I mean, I think he's doing a phenomenal job personally, but again, I can understand, I guess, because of the years of the lack of success. But yeah, I think he's been incredible for his entire career.
And I don't want to dispute that in any way, shape, or form. Popovich is the gold standard when it comes to what a coach and what a person, frankly, should want to be. And he has, I think, proven that over and over and over again. I think that his best years coaching are behind him. And there are still things that he can do well, that he does do well, that I don't want to dispute. I think not playing a point guard this year, I know there is a reason behind it. Like Jeremy Sohan at point guard is fine, but the Trey Jones, Victor Wembanyama minutes are awesome, and they don't play them enough. Like they just
But they
don't.
got, but they're not. It's not about winning right now. They have a vision that they're executing.
I
It's
know.
similar with Jokic or Şengün or any of these players. Like they have a vision for what they're trying to accomplish. And I think Sohan, like let's say it works, and next year he's fully capable of playing that position, and you have a defender at the level of OG Anunoby that is at that level, and he's also like a positive offensive player, and he's a ball handler playmaker.
Maybe it will work. I do not think it's going to work. And this is where like sitting on his couch Ryan Blackburn is probably the wrong person to really evaluate this, and we're going to need some time in order to see it. I just don't believe in it right now. Like look, I had him at 8. I didn't have him at like 12 or 15
Right.
or 20 or anything like that. He
Right.
just missed the cut for me. But I mean, he is still an elite coach. If I had to expand this tier to 8 coaches, he's in the elite tier. There's no question. I just think there are other guys that are like innovating in like what I think is more valuable ways than what he's doing right now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can hear you. I just think that the legacy component, and if playing the if game, if it does work, Sohan, Vassell, and Victor Wembanyama, how are you scoring? That's what and then even John Collins, or not John Collins, Zach Collins.
Yeah.
Like even just like having them on the roster, I think Devon's Leap, Keldon Johnson, like they just have I don't know, man. I think he's done a really good job, but we'll see. And then obviously at number 1, I think we both have a unanimous degree here is Erik Spoelstra, and I think one more championship, by the way, Michael Malone can take this top spot. But
Yeah.
I mean, again, say what you want. It was a fluke. They shouldn't have been there. They were only making threes. Yada 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 yada. That boy got Jimmy Butler giving 56 and 42 to Giannis and Drew, and then he got them hitting 50% of their threes. Their offense was pristine through the Eastern Conference. Got up 3-0 on the Celtics. The players started falling apart. They still won the series. Jimmy Butler looks like an MVP candidate in the playoff. That's also in part due to him. Bam Adebayo, arguably the best defender in basketball. He uses him better than almost any defensive player gets deployed in the NBA. Their zone is one of the only effectual zones you can run in the NBA playoff setting because of how smart that team is. Now, you can say he was carried by LeBron, but again, they didn't beat like chumps. They beat Billy Donovan and Kevin Durant and Russ and Harden. And then they went and subsequently beat Duncan, Manu, Kawhi. They got smoked the next year. But I think just all the resume all together what is it? They went to 4. How many NBA finals did they go to? They went to 1 and 10, 11, 12, and 13. So 4.
Yeah, all four of
And then they went.
And then in these last year, like they've been to 3 of the last 4 Eastern Conference finals.
Eastern Conference finals, right.
Despite the fact that I don't think anybody would consider them a top 2 talented Eastern Conference team, they've still found ways to do it every single year.
And they might do it again. They're 6 and 4 now.
I know.
Without Max Strus and without Gabe Vincent.
I know. He is a magician. There is no better compliment that I can give that there is no way that team should be. I think they're 7 and 4 now on November 16th.
Right.
But like there is no way in hell that they should be 7 and 4 with some of the injuries that they've sustained and where the Eastern Conference is around them. Like they just continue to find ways to win. And that's just who they are. So credit to Erik Spoelstra and the job that he has done. The fact that they even pushed Denver the way that they did in the NBA Finals, like they deserve a lot of credit.
Well,
there were close games. There are close games,
so were Darvin Ham close games. But that for me, that's like I do think so. But I think that's where it is. Like I think as good as Erik Spoelstra is, I think that's where the Michael Malone gets to heave up the 3 for me. Is that and 2 for you apparently? I think Malone going through the playoffs and then seeing Erik Spoelstra do what he did to Bud, to Tibbs, and then doing it to Mazzulla, Michael Malone was like, I'm not having none of that. You ain't getting none of that over on me. So I thought that's what I'm saying about Malone. I think Malone does that again. Then we're having a whole different conversation. Like, is Malone a top 15 coach ever? That's the kind of conversation he moves into. Because you named the coach with 2 championships. So I don't know. But anyway, but Erik Spoelstra, hands down, number 1.
A fun hypothetical here. What happens to both teams if you swap Bam Adebayo and Nikola Jokic?
Oh well, then yeah, the Heat win. What is this?
Yeah, it's more of like, hey, Malone does like it's always hard to parse credit in some ways where Malone does deserve a lot of credit for the way that he has helped elevate Denver, but sometimes it does kind of come down to the
Well, but I know,
involvement.
but the Jimmy Butler, Jokic with Duncan and Haywood Highsmith and Kevin Love and Kyle Lowry is fundamentally, and Gabe Vincent and Max Strus is fundamentally different than Jamal, KCP, MPJ, AG, Bam. Now defensively, they would be locked down,
Yeah,
but they would have
exactly.
nobody. But they would have like I'm saying, but like Jamal obviously would be a All NBA player in a playoff setting. But who do they beat? Maybe Memphis, maybe the Warriors. And do they beat the Lakers? You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm saying.
Oh man,
They wouldn't. I don't know if they would
wouldn't be
have the
doing
power.
anything in that system. That's for sure.
That's a fact. Bam would be locking up. That's for sure.
Man, it's fun. Always fun to have these conversations with you, dude. All right, Swipa, that was a fun conversation about the top 7 coaches in the NBA. I think the overarching thing that we can learn from this, there's a lot of talent in the coaching sphere right now, and I can have a guy like Greg Popovich or Steve Kerr outside of my top 7, and I think the list that I still put together is really really good, just from a talent perspective. So
Yeah, it's like when you put Jalen Green in number 67.
hey, sometimes I could be wrong. One time in a blue moon, just one time. It's fine. It's fine. That's it. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like button, that subscribe button down below on the YouTube channel. We will talk to you guys very soon.